Hey friends, it's the last chance on the October You Should Read box. That's what it looks like. And I'm shipping the last batch tomorrow, so if you want it, it's your time to grab it. But before you make up your mind, I want to tell you why you should read Supercommunicators by Charles Duhigg. It's fascinating. I'm actually, in order to tell you about it, I'm going to read you the prologue, the opening story of this book. But I hope this sets the tone for what you can get out of this book. It is one of the best reads, and it's so fun and exhilarating with the stories he added. And it studies communication and how to become a better communicator and how to feel more connected in your communication, because communication is one of the biggest obstacles to feeling connected, feeling belonging with our fellow humans. So listen up. If there was one thing everyone knew about Felix Segala, it was that he was easy to talk to, exceptionally easy. People loved talking to him because they always came away feeling a little smarter, funnier, and more interesting. Even if you had nothing in common with Felix, which was unusual because the conversation inevitably revealed all kinds of opinions and experiences of friends you shared, it felt as if he heard you, like you had some kind of a bond. That's why the scientists had thought him out. Felix had been with the Federal Bureau of Investigation for 2 decades. He had joined after college and a stint in the military, and then had spent a few years as an agent in the field. That's where his superiors had first taken note of his easy way with others. A series of promotions soon followed, and essentially he landed as a senior regional administrator with the mandate to serve as an all-around negotiator. He was the guy who could coax statements from reluctant witnesses, or convince fugitives to turn themselves in, or console families as they grieved. He once persuaded a man who was barricading himself in a room with 6 cobras, 19 rattlesnakes, and an iguana to come out peacefully and then name his accomplices in the animal smuggling ring. The key was getting him to see things from the snake's perspective, Felix told me. He was a little weird, but he genuinely loved animals. The FBI had crisis negotiation unit for hostage situations. When things got unusually complicated, they called someone like Felix. There were lessons that Felix would share with younger agents when they asked for advice. Never pretend you're anything other than a cop. Never manipulate or threaten. Ask lots of questions. And when someone becomes emotional, cry or laugh or complain or celebrate with them. But what ultimately made him so good at his job was a bit of mystery, even to his colleagues. So, in 2014, when a group of psychologists, sociologists, and other researchers were tasked by the Department of Defense to explore new methods for teaching persuasion and negotiation to military officers, essentially, how do we train people to get better at communication? The scientists thought out Felix. They had learned about him from various officials who, when asked to name the best negotiators they had ever worked with, brought up his name again and again. Many of the scientists expected Felix to be tall and handsome, with warm eyes and a rich baritone. The guy who walked in for the interview, however, looked like a middle-aged dad, with a mustache and a little putting around the middle, and a soft, slightly nasal voice. He seemed unremarkable. Felix told me that after introduction and pleasantries, one of the scientists explained the nature of their project and began with the broad question, "Can you tell us how you think about communication?" "It might be better if I demonstrated," Felix replied. "What's one of your favorite memories?" The scientist Felix was speaking to had introduced himself as the head of the large lab. He oversaw millions of dollars in grants and dozens of people. He didn't seem like the kind of guy accustomed to idly reminiscing in the middle of the day. The scientist paused. "Probably my daughter's wedding," he finally said. "My whole family was there. My mother died just a few months later." Felix asked a few follow-up questions and occasionally shared memories of his own. "My sister got married in 2010, Felix told the man. "She passed away now. It was cancer, which was hard, but she was so beautiful that day. That's how I try to remember her." It went on this way for the next 45 minutes. Felix would ask the scientist questions and occasionally talk about himself, When someone revealed something personal, Felix would reciprocate with a story of his own. One scientist mentioned problems he was having with a teenage daughter, and Felix responded by describing an aunt he couldn't seem to get along with, no matter how hard he tried. When another researcher asked about Felix's childhood, he explained that he had been painfully shy, but his father had been a salesman and his grandfather a con man, and so by imitating their examples, he had eventually learned how to connect with others. As they got close to the end of their scheduled time together, a professor of psychology chimed in. "I'm sorry," she said. "This has been wonderful, but I don't feel any closer to understanding what you do. Why do you think so many people recommended we talk to you?" "That's a fair question," Felix replied. "Before I answer, I want to ask. You mentioned you're a single mom, and I imagine there's a lot to juggling motherhood and a career. This might seem unusual, but I'm wondering, what would you tell someone who's getting a divorce?" The woman went silent for a beat. "I guess I'll play alone," she said. "I have lots of advice. When I separate from my husband..." Felix gently interrupted. "I don't really need an answer," he said, "but I want to point out that in the room filled with professional colleagues, and after less than an hour of conversation, you're willing to talk about one of the most intimate parts of your life." He explained that one reason she felt so at ease was likely because the environment they had created together, how Felix had listened closely, had asked questions that drew out people's vulnerabilities, how they had all revealed meaningful details about themselves. Felix had encouraged the scientists to explain how they saw the world, and then had proven to them that he had heard what they were saying. Whenever someone said something emotional, even when they didn't realize their emotions were on display, Felix had reciprocated by voicing feelings of his own. All those small choices they had made, he explained, had created an atmosphere of trust. "It's a set of skills," he told the scientists. "There's nothing magical about it. Put differently, anyone can learn to be a super communicator." Okay, so I know that was a lot, but this is literally the premises for the book. There are some people who seem to have mastered the skill of connection through communication. And you know those people. They are the person you call when you're hurting. They're the friend you count on when life gets to you, or you're having a problem with your partner or your parent. These are the people that he writes about, that he studied, and the stories that he shares that have mastered the tricks, and it's all science. So this book literally gives you the science, tells you how to get more tuned to being a good communicator, and yeah, that's what the book is about. So I find it to be so fascinating. My partner already finished it. I'm just getting started on this because I had a hefty to read list, but I'm just excited for you guys to have this in your arsenal of tools, because that is what it is. It's a tool. It's a great tool if you're in any kind of profession where you work with humans, and who isn't? So think about it. It's a great gift for somebody you love. In a professional setting, maybe a great holiday gift for somebody, in a fellow coworker or a boss. Highly recommend.